Yo, what's up? It's been a while since I've made one of these videos, but welcome back to another episode of Casual Chats. I think the last one was probably over a year ago, but this is kind of part of sort of New Year's resolution for me. My New Year's resolutions, they never go well. I mean, I think last year my New Year's resolution was I will try not to stream more than 9 hours in a given stream, and I think you guys kind of saw how that went this year, but I'm trying to resolve to do a little bit more with my YouTube channel this year. As you guys know, I pretty much only upload for sponsor obligations, more or less. Some people who go to my YouTube channel looking for content that I'm a bit more impassioned about, like Lost Ark and whatnot, might be disappointed to find that I haven't really uploaded in a long time, and I kind of want to try and resolve that. So to that end, I have reached out to a couple of people. A couple of people have reached out to me regarding editorial jobs. So we're going to try something. We're going to test run a few things and see how this works. But for me, what I can do first and foremost, these are very simple videos. It's just me yapping, is the Casual Chat series, which a lot of people asked for me to bring back. Just updates, because I stream for very long times. A lot of people can't catch what's going on, they're out of the loop, what am I playing, what's going on in life, yada yada yada, etc. So this is what this is meant to be. No script, very off the cuff like the previous Casual Chats. There might be editing, there might be not. If you see editing, then great. But let's start with the main stuff, gaming, because I'm a gaming channel primarily. What have I been playing? What am I currently playing? What will I be playing? That kind of stuff. So no surprise, still playing Lost Ark, but I've tried to tone it back. Since last time I did the Casual Chat series, I've toned back the amount that I play Lost Ark. And it's not out of not liking the game, but more out of a very philosophical viewpoint that to enjoy something, you need not indulge in it too much. And there was definitely a time where I was playing the game too much. And even recently, I was only playing the game 2 days a week, but I was doing 28 to 34 raids in those 2 days, oftentimes streaming upwards of 20 hours in a single day. And that was all in an effort to finish my raids quickly so that I could go do other things. Because I felt like by playing only Lost Ark, I'd be missing out on other game releases and also missing out on an opportunity to take mental breaks away from the game. And that keeps a very healthy relationship with the game. And so Lost Ark's got a lot going on in it. They just had their big low on announcement not that long ago, and they announced a new class, new region, new raids, and the big Kazeros race, the big end of act bit. It's been 6 years since the game has come out in Korea, and now we are finally fighting the big bad of the first act. And before that, we have a rematch against Saintone, which I will be raiding with the same people. We lost a couple static members because they want to join more serious parties to prepare for the Kazeros race in an attempt to get into the top 10 and get one of those prestigious titles. But I'm still raiding with the same group as I always have been before. As for the Kazeros race, though, that's where things get a bit trickier because, as you guys know, I don't live in Korea anymore. For 2 years, I've been living in California now, and it's technically against their terms of use to access the service region from outside the region. And I've had people recommend, why not just fly to Korea to participate in the race and then go back afterwards. And I like the idea behind it, but the reality of things is they would check the connection history before that point as well, and they would see ample logs of me connecting from out of country. Some of my closest friends and even my roommate have the same concerns that technically they are breaching TOS. And the reason why this is a big deal now, even though generally speaking no one cares about VPNing into a region, is because of the very nature of the race. You see, in Korea, anyone found breaching any rule that is in the top 10 is investigated, and if they're found guilty of breaking any rule, no matter how light or how major it is, they're served a ban. And this is only the case if you're in that top 10, because everyone only cares about the prestige of the top 10. If you're outside the top 10, no one's going to care for the company to investigate you. They only care that the sanctity of the top 10 is maintained. And I'm well known enough in the Korean region for being a foreigner. They know, they're aware, they just don't care until it matters, and it would matter in this case. So it's very problematic, and I'm not entirely sure what to do yet. I like the idea of just, well, I guess it depends on how I feel about the game at this point. I've been playing the game for 6 years. I think the only other person who plays that you guys might know that has played longer than me is Geodao. Geodao started in closed beta. I started in closed beta 1. I started in closed beta 2. And for me, I like the idea of participating in the Kazeros race. But I don't know if I would be able to find a group that would be okay with the idea of losing their potential top 10 title should they party with me. So I'm pretty much stuck between a rock and a hard place for that race. And the alternative, because a lot of the viewers in Twitch chat don't want me to take that risk, the alternative is maybe throwing a big production for the race, which would also be kind of cool, because Final Fantasy XIV does that with their Ultimate releases, and World of Warcraft does that with their Mythic Race the World First. And I don't think Lost Ark has ever had that. So I recommended it to Stoops, and he was sort of keen on the idea too, but the problem that he proposed is that the odds are, because Kazeros is propped up to be a more difficult race than Thamine, is that the show just might be too long, and it might be hard to keep a production of quality going for potentially 2 or more weeks that it takes for a first clear to appear. Now, the race itself is extremely controversial, especially on the Korean side right now. There's a lot of discussion points that the game is the most pay to win that it has ever been in 6 years. And this is not people denying that Lost Ark is pay to win, for the record. Everyone is painfully aware that Lost Ark is a pay to win game. Some people will deny it and call it, pay for convenience. Oh, it's pay to lose, actually. But we all know deep down inside it's a pay to win game. The problem is that it's very cyclical in nature. So right now, the game is more, people generate more gold than they ever have before, but they also use more gold than they ever have before, because we're at the start of a new tier 4. So things like gems and relic engraving books, just general honing and raising alts, very, very costly things, and people just don't have the gold to afford all of this. And the issue is not that everything is expensive, because at the beginning of tier 3 4 years ago, it was the same thing. Everything was extremely expensive, prohibitively expensive. The problem that people are raising is that they put the most important race of the game's life cycle thus far at the very beginning of the tier, before things have an opportunity to become more affordable to the layman. And so if we look at the Thamine race to first, the gap between a hardcore or light spender versus the biggest whale, it was big, but it wasn't that big. It was very plausible for someone to go into that race with at least 10s on their main skills across the board and full engraving books. And even then, it was the end of the tier where the power of the sidereal weapon was at its absolute lowest. For example, if they activated their sidereal skill, it only resulted in a 15% or so damage boost for 10 seconds, which is a lot. But compared to right now, where the the sidereal weapon has just upgraded to a higher tier and is at its peak strength at the moment, they get a 25% damage boost when they activate that thing now. And then between that and the full level 10 gems, the double high accessories, the full relic engraving books being read. Even the brand new bracelet. I mean, bracelet, it's easier to get a good bracelet, but there's still a value of a difference between people who have perfect bracelets and those who just have settled bracelets. And the value of power between a heavy spender or like a heavy whale versus like a light spender or just a regular hardcore player is it's just a mountain that you cannot overcome. We're talking levels of power that in many cases you could take someone who's near the item level cap at 1730 and you can take someone who's like fully whaled out with every single system, and you can have power differences around 40%, which is outrageous even with their item levels so close to each other. It's all these other systems that are at their infancy at the beginning of tier 4 that basically cause the rift, essentially the pay to win rift that a lot of people are complaining about right now. And this is kind of exacerbated by the fact that, if you guys have been paying attention, the most recent raids, they have gone away from being heavy gimmicky. The gimmicks, they're much easier than the gimmicks of the past. And a lot of these newer raids, they're kind of more stat stick, like DPS check, just raw damage output from the boss. And these kind of fights heavily favor those with gear. Those with gear, they can survive more hits without dying, therefore less restarts during prog, because one straight person dies and you can't continue the run. If one person's dead, you have to restart. Or more damage to push phases that weaker parties might need to find alternate solutions to, or just seeing less patterns in general, which is the greatest form of defense, because you're just not seeing as many dangerous attacks in that case. And it is a type of fight structure that favors pay to win more. On the other hand, there is the old fights of yore, which were gimmicky heavy, and these fights were much fairer. If you failed the gimmick, regardless if you were whaled out or not, the boss would kill everyone. But here's the problem. People don't like gimmicky raids. They like to hit the boss. That's what's fun. The problem with gimmicky raids is they have a tendency not to age well, and Lost Ark has a prevailing problem, which is raids that are released, they have a shelf life that's way longer than other MMOs. Other MMOs, a raid comes out, you farm it for maybe a couple months, 1 or 2 months, and then you get everything from it, and then you're done with it. You don't even need to run it anymore. It's done. But Lost Ark, because gold is tied to the raids they stay in relevancy for sometimes more than a year, sometimes a year and a half in the most extreme cases. And the issue with that is, as you grow stronger from subsequent raids and subsequent systems, these older raids, which you're still doing because they're very relevant in gold yield, they age differently, right? I'm sure you have in mind right now some raids that were fun on prog, but as you did them as homework 6 months later, you're just like, can you get this gimmick over with? I'm so tired of it. I just want to move on to the next thing. And that kind of mentality is what kind of creates this hate for gimmicky raids, because they're fun to solve first time around, but when you're doing them dozens, hundreds of times, they can grow kind of stale. And so here's this problem that's proposed. People don't like gimmicky raids, but gimmicky raids were a fairer design between those who paid and those who did not. And so it's like, how do you solve that? What kind of raid design would you need to create a raid that ages very well while also being fair for all types of players? And Thaymine's a pretty decent example of that, honestly. Thaymine has, I think, just enough gimmicks where it's not too burdensome to repeat. I don't know. It's a great discussion point, though, honestly. I think there's many sides to this coin to talk about, and it's a hot topic on the Korean side as well. Many people raise qualms about it, but besides that point, Wild Soul, that's the next class that's coming out. It's a specialist class. Not everyone likes the idea of raising a class that looks like a child. Personally, I don't really care, but I also don't really like the druid archetype in games. I think in any game I've ever played, I've cared very little for the druid archetype, whether it was Diablo or now Lost Ark or even games like Baldur's Gate. I just never really saw the appeal of druids. Just a taste thing, but I'll make it regardless. I made a vow I'd make all new classes regardless of what they are, raise them to a high level so people can see the gameplay and then decide what to do with it afterwards. So I'll probably raise it to 1680, and if I don't like it, I'll drop it. And that sounds crazy, right? Dropping a 1680 character, but I mean, I do it as a job. You know, I'll pay it off, and I did the same thing with Soul Eater. I raised her to 1640, which at the time of, back when she came out, was very endgame. But I didn't like the class, so I just ended up dropping it. My current roster, I pretty much like it as is. Sorceress, I've been experimenting with like Blunt Thorn builds and whatnot, which are great in homework, but not good in prog. So I think for the Thamine race, I'll just do a regular Mana Forge build. Breaker, I'm still having a lot of fun with that, but I still find his Arc passive stuff to be very lackluster. But he remains strong because he was just so strong in tier 3. So even though he got arguably the worst Arc passive in tier 4, it doesn't really matter. You know, he's still a sure breaker. He's still more than good enough. Not the strongest, but still plenty competent. The Scouter, I was going to drop him, and then they gave him a combination hyper skill to replace the drone hyper skill, and then I enjoyed playing him again. The Deadeye, I still love playing him. Here's the problem. I do want to try out Enhanced Weapon because Enhanced Weapon looks really fun, but I still love Pistolier. So at the moment, he's just Pistolier, but I've been tempted many a time. I think Deadeye is very fortunate that he has two very diverse and interesting specs to build off of now that people both like. One is considered one of the strongest right now, and one is just considered easy and fun to play. My Aeromancer, damage output's mediocre, but I just kind of switched her build around a little bit so that everything is kind of less committal, less animation locked, and it's been pretty fun, so I still enjoy playing her. Berserker is an interesting one. I raised my Berserker as BT at the beginning of tier 4 because BT just got so much better. And it has higher damage potential, but then we were in like this weird meta where all the raids we were overgeared for if you were in Arc passive. So things like Aegir and Thamine and Echidna and Behemoth, if you had Arc passive on, you were technically overgeared for them. And I did have Arc passive on the character, and it was just kind of weird joining these other like high level characters and just going from mech to mech, because with BT you kind of have to time everything perfectly so that your state is ready just as a damage window appears, and with the fight length shifting so much depending on the strength of the party, it just became so stressful that I was just like, screw it, I'll just switch Mayhem. And Mayhem is technically weaker, but it's very stress-free, especially after the latest updates to Berserker, so I've been enjoying it a lot. I've been playing around with this new Mountain Crash build where you use Mountain Crash for damage and you get to use Shoulder Charge, and honestly it's fun, so I kept him. And the Striker, a lot of people were super doom about him at the beginning of tier 4, but then he got his hyper skill, then it wasn't strong enough, so then they buffed it, then they buffed him again, and now in the West they've come up with this crazy build that doesn't use LTS, which I've been experimenting around with a little bit. It's not too complicated, but it's very freeform and very it's practically non-structured, especially depending on the type of fight you're doing, which can feel a little stressful to play. So it definitely needs a lot more practice, but it definitely does do more damage. It's just dropping LTS feels kind of sad because I feel like that skill was a huge part of Striker's identity, and it feels difficult to drop it. I just love Lightning Tiger Strike because it's just such a flashy, just stylish ability, and you can just do so many cool stuff with it. So the idea of dropping it because you can only use it as a 2-spender at lowest is a little saddening. So we will see. I'll try around, play around with it. I'll get back to you guys on it. But that's kind of my roster as of late. If Wild Soul is interesting, then I'll consider dropping a character and keeping her in my roster. If she's not, then I'll just drop her. And that brings me to 2 more points for Lost Ark. First is I brought back Flex Friday. I sort of missed this latest iteration of this one. It's late, but I'm still going to do it. But it's basically at the end of every month now, and it used to be a fan favorite program of just people just getting to show off either their biggest successes or biggest fails of the week. But now it's monthly format, so I don't get too overwhelmed with other projects along the way. So if you are interested in it, there's cash prizes for the best submissions in the Discord. And then the final point, Lore Ark. I think in the past year, there was nary a day where I streamed Lost Ark where someone, at least one, but oftentimes more people, asked me when I was going to do the next installation of Lost Ark. I truly mean this, that in 300 and I think 70 streams this year or 360 streams this year, because I streamed almost every day. I can't think of many streams where I didn't get that question. So I'm happy to announce that Ark Redux is in production. I finished the script on stream not that long ago. It took me like 18 hours to write it on stream, and I'm still modifying it based off of a Reddit thread of feedback I put on the Lost Ark Reddit of people's favorite story moments and favorite story beats. And I just finished all the capture of all the cutscenes that are relevant to this project, uploaded them, sent them over to Lustboy. Now he's just waiting for the VO, trying to find someone that sounds like Vati Vidya or David Attenborough to narrate it. No, actually, I am going to be the one that narrates it. I'll do a live narration on stream, then I'll take the raw audio, send it to Lustboy. Then the whole thing will be packaged in this one big YouTube video. I asked my chat if they would prefer one video or multiple videos chopped up. They asked for one video, so it's going to be one video, one very long video, chaptered, of course, so you can navigate through it, and I will not be monetizing it so that you can listen to it like an audiobook, and even if you don't have Adblocker or YouTube Premium, you won't get interruptions along the way. This is a long time coming. I've owed this to my audience for a very long time, and I will try to explain to you why I haven't made it or other installments sooner. Basically, I hate uploading things onto YouTube that don't age very well. So if you go back into my videos, you might see some videos might have this little bracket that says outdated next to them, and that's because I hate making guides, and then they become eventually irrelevant because things change, balance patches change, and new discoveries get made, and it's like, oh god, this isn't relevant anymore, but people are still looking it up, and this thing has like 100,000, 200,000 views, and they think it's still relevant even though it's from a few years ago, but a lot has changed since then. And then it's like, god damn it, bro, I don't want to misinform people with the wrong things. And this doesn't just extend to guides and whatnot, but it also extends to just things that live on YouTube forever. And I look back at my old Lost Ark videos and I don't like them. I really don't. I think they were just generally poorly made. The very, very amateurish lore videos. And I look at the lore greats and other games like Vati from the Soul series, and I think to myself, damn, I don't want to make something unless it could live up to my own expectations. And look, no one out there in the audience, I haven't seen a single disparaging comment from chat or from YouTube of people saying this series sucks, the editing sucks. I haven't seen that. It's myself. It's my own self-criticisms and my own personal demons of trying to make something that I can be happy and satisfied with. So I'm putting a lot of effort into this video because I want to be satisfied with it. For me, it's just something that I need to overcome for myself. So do expect this within the next couple of weeks on YouTube. After I do the VO, then the editing, it'll be good to go. It'll probably be a 4 to 5 hour video, and it'll cover all the lore from the pre-story of Lost Ark all the way up to the Brawl Shah's Curzon raid. And then, assuming I can stay on top of things, Remeria and Act 3 of Curzon and the finale of Act 1 after Kazeros, they should hopefully be their own video. And that's what I'm going to try to do. Wish me good luck, boys. But besides for Lost Ark, what else has there been? So a couple weeks ago, Dofus 3.0 dropped. I was playing that a lot. And then it was just such bad timing because Path of Exile 2 dropped right after that. And I felt like I had to play that. I really wanted to play that. And I played Path of Exile 2. Dofus 3.0, really damn good. I wish more people were exposed to Dofus 3.0. I'm going to try and play it a little bit more. I've fallen so far behind now. But the game company and Kama in France, they just don't do any marketing for the game. They really don't. Not internationally, at least. They might market it domestically towards the French audience where the game is tremendous. The game has so many players, but it's predominantly French. But God, I just wish more people knew about it, because I think if more people knew about it, they would play it. It's a very old game, but it's aged extremely well, especially because of its stylized graphics. And it is basically the only turn-based grid strategy MMO you will find in the world. The only other one is made by the same company, and it's not as successful as the original Dofus. So I've been playing that. I've made a guild on Decal 10, and we have our own little community there. I'm gonna try and play it more moving forward. It's hard to juggle MMOs, it really is. But moving on, Path of Exile. I played it a lot. My last video was a little guide from a build that I had personally made towards the launch. It was actually, I put that video up really quickly after the launch. I tried making my own build when everyone was doing these cast on shock and cast on freeze builds. I was just playing around with raw damage Ark, and it was working out pretty well for me. And I learned a lot along the way. I made a lot of mistakes. I had to make so many edits to the build just because the nuances and technicalities of damage calculations and all that jazz, and just trying to figure out the itemization and the passive tree and optimizing routes on the passive tree and all this kind of stuff. And I was happy with the end result, and I had a lot of fun playing Path of Exile too. I think the game, among the ARPG genre, which does not include Lost Ark, is probably the best. But it is a diamond in the rough, and it's got a lot of flaws, many of which its ardent content creators have already brought up. Issues like Magic Find creating issues in the standard trade environment. And this is the thing. If you're a Path of Exile player, you're probably scoffing at that. You're probably like, who plays standard? Here's the problem. Path of Exile 2 in its current state is basically propped on a standard environment. It is. Whereas in Path of Exile 1, no one thinks of standard and everyone plays leagues because everyone knows that's what you're supposed to do. That's where all the fun and interest is. That's where the seasonal gameplay is. Path of Exile 2, much like how Diablo 4 did, attracted a lot of attention from outside of the ARPG space and brought in a lot of new players that were just not familiar with that idea of only playing leagues and playing very seasonally and, you know, just playing to a quick burnout and then coming back at a later time. But the way that PoE 2 is set up right now is there's a lot of issues related to Magic Find. Either you play a Magic Find build or you get left in the dust. PoE 1 solves this by offering alternative content that doesn't rely on Magic Find, but PoE 2 has no alternative content for that. It's Magic Find or bust. And only certain classes can actually invest in Magic Find without really taking penalties, such as the Ranger Deadeye and the Stormweaver Sorceress. If anything else would require substantial investment to make work with heavy Magic Find builds. And so the economy is just so out of whack that if you start the game now, you're screwed. It's just a reality, and I think anyone should be able to acknowledge the fact that the people who reach the highest levels first benefit the most because they get access to the strongest gear at the lowest prices, essentially, before the inflation of the market evolves from exalts to divs and all that kind of stuff. I myself got so much gear that appreciated in value so much because I no-life the hell out of the game, and I was able to get gear that I was later able to sell for divs for just a few exalts each. I had a wand that I bought for 10 exalts, which at the start of the server opening was a lot, but later became worth 10 divines, which by today's market estimate is 1,000 exalts. So it went up a lot in price, but so did everything. And I had my own issues with the game. I just scoured for so long looking for citadels on the Atlas tree, couldn't find one, and I see this complaint a lot, and it's just a lot of people complaining that, you know, they'll play 200 hours without finding a citadel and gaining access to the pinnacle boss. And I myself, I just struggled so much. I went in so many different directions looking for it. I even tried committing to one way and I just couldn't find one. So I just did other contents like the breach boss and the ritual boss and stuff like that. And I got to a point where I was very happy with my build. I was able to make a build that was able to very reasonably output something in the ballpark of like 15 million DPS against bosses pretty comfortably, while also having good mapping, and I was happy with the result. But I think for now I'm just going to wait until the next big update. Odds are they'll probably nerf Archmage, which will indirectly nerf me, but that's okay. I'm happy to look for new builds and explore new ideas. But I think I've had my fun with Path of Exile for the time being. I did play hardcore SSF as well, and I actually found that experience to be significantly more fun than standard, because you actually get so excited for gear upgrades in SSF, and then with hardcore you try to over prepare for everything. You try to like lay out the plan in your head on how you're going to proceed and how you're going to gear up before you approach this kind of thing. There's this one boss at the beginning of Act 2. She attaches a bomb to her weapon, and then she goes crazy lunging at you, and people know this as a notorious run ender, because oftentimes when it hits you, it will kill you in one shot from full HP, even if you're a pretty tanky character. So I went into that fight with full fire resistance as a crossbow wielding monk, and then when she got close, I had swapped out to a shield and brought it up, and the attack just did 0 damage to me. I was like, I didn't even over level for the fight. I think I was like level 20 or something like that, which is not that much higher than the zone area the first time you encounter it. But I just stocked up on like everything to just make sure that I wouldn't die, because it's better safe than sorry. It was just so fun, you know. The one gripe that I do have, and this is a criticism about the community, so if you take offense to this, I mean not to offend you personally, but more on the community as a whole. The entire idea of logging out at the first sign of danger is just cowardly. It's just so lame. Why are you playing hardcore at that point? I know people will argue that it's part of the game design's fault that encourages that type of gameplay, but there's no honor in that. There is no honor in logging out at the first sign of danger, especially because now it's a pause, so like you're totally safe at the first sign of danger. However, I will agree with these people that the visual design of this game is highly questionable. Why is it that every time you kill a rare, it looks like it's going to blow up? And then when things do blow up, they don't look like they're going to blow up. It's crazy. The visual obfuscation of the game is sometimes so bad. And I've seen countless clips of this on YouTube already, of people just being bewildered of what kills them. And it actually gave me a newfound appreciation for Lost Ark telegraphs. And I'm like, oh god, now that I think about it, Lost Ark does telegraphs very well for an action MMO. Everything is so clear in comparison. So I think GGG has a great baseline to work with, and they got a lot of great suggestions from some people like Neversink, the guy who made the PoE filter that everyone uses. And I'm excited to see how the game evolves, because I think it definitely has more than enough potential to be the best ARPG. It's just right now, it's a huge diamond in the rough and needs to grow. And it is a little alarming that GGG is repeating a lot of mistakes from PoE 1 in PoE 2, because that kind of just shows not learning from their mistakes. And believe me, I play Lost Ark, devs that make repeat mistakes all the time. But you kind of hold GGG to a higher standard, kind of, because you know they're such a beloved game developer. And it's really funny because coming from Lost Ark, right? A lot of the people during the era of Gold River, between year 3 and year 5, they glazed the hell out of this guy, because he essentially saved Lost Ark. But I come from before that era, and it was the same director who had nearly killed the game back in season 1. Like he made a lot of mistakes, and he also made mistakes in season 2 that kind of carried over later on. Basically, they were future problems. And like, I think PoE 1 players also recognize this a little bit. I mean, you probably do notice this. I'm not a PoE 1 player. I played like 60 hours? No, 250 hours, but that's like hardly anything. Over a decade ago. And you've probably noticed, if you play PoE 1, that a lot of people who came into the PoE 2 environment kind of gassed up GGG because they just saw how they were doing all these like insane things and these crazy showcases, and PoE 2 is just super big hype. And you know that GGG has made mistakes before. They're not infallible. They're human. They make mistakes. They've had problems with their game in the past as well. Some controversial issues in PoE 1 here and there. And you kind of saw it coming, that mistakes or oversights could happen. But maybe a lot of people who went into this thinking that they were perfect developers might have felt a little blindsided, which is pretty unreasonable if you think about it. Which I guess sort of leads me to my next segue as I start coughing. My health. I have just hit 32 years old. The years are flying. I'm getting older, and my health is like, it's okay. It could be better. I don't eat the best, and I still have GERD-like symptoms, and I still take esomeprazole in order to kind of suppress those symptoms. Those symptoms aren't exactly serious. I think the biggest health potential complication that I probably have that I should be more concerned about is sleep apnea. I'm pretty sure I do have that. Everyone around me is pretty sure that I have that. I need to get tested. I need to do a sleep study for that, because apparently sleep apnea can develop into something a little bit more serious in life, which I'm a little worried about, but have been kind of putting off a little bit here and there. But I mean, that's kind of it for my health. I haven't been working out. Funny enough, I stopped exercising when the first Descendant came out. That was about 6 months ago, and I'm like in okay shape, but that's more residual from working out daily for like a year. But I'm kind of getting out of shape again, and I really need to fix that, I think, for my mental health and adding a little bit of structure in my life. And that also just kind of means I need to be more considerate about my streaming hours. I'm probably going to still degen a lot here and there, but I need to be careful about doing like back-to-back 30 to 40 hour streams like I was doing not that long ago. Because that at that point it does probably become a health concern. Yeah, and then other games. I mean, I'm just playing miscellaneous games as they come out. I'm going through Cyberpunk 2077 right now. A lot of games that I start and then not finish. There are some games that I do finish. I played Metaphora this past year and Wukong. Both were fantastic games. Didn't get to try out Astrobot, but I heard it was a super fun game. Played Balatro recently. That game is super addicting. And there's a lot of games in 2025 I'm looking forward to. And to that end, I think in January, I'm going to pick up Monster Hunter World again. I'm trying to get Stoops to pick it up so that we can meet at the beginning of the hard hunts right after Zora Magdaros and maybe play the multiplayer together, because I think it would be a great warm-up before Monster Hunter Wilds in February. And I think there's a lot of other games that are coming out in 2025 that I'm also interested in. It's a very long laundry list. Maybe at some point I'll post on Discord, the list of games that I'm looking forward in 2025. But yeah, I think that's it. If you made it this far into the video, it's already kind of dragged on too long. If you've made it this far into the video, what kind of video content do you actually want to see from me? Do you want to see more casual chats? Do you want to see more actual production stuff like Lost Ark? Do you actually want to see video guides, even though they kind of are temporary before they become outdated and stuff? Let me know in the comments what you think. And here's to hoping that 2025 will be a better year for me being productive on YouTube. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys on the next one.